Hey guys, Femi with LandVerse, and today I'm going to be answering the top 25 most Googled questions about land flipping. It's going to be a different kind of video today, so I'm actually really excited about this. What I basically did was I did some really deep research on what you guys ask on Google, on YouTube, and comments, and I took 25 of the most asked questions, and so today I'm going to answer them. Let's start with the first question, and that is, what is land flipping and how does it work? So if you're completely new, you have no idea what this is. Essentially, land flipping is when we buy a parcel of vacant land, could be anywhere across the country. We buy it at 30 to 50% of the market value, and then we resell it at 80 to 90% of the market value. We resell it on the market, and someone buys it from us in cash for a multitude more than what we bought it for. And then once they buy it from us, we make money. And what we're able to do is actually turn that product into a business, hire people and put people in place to work all the functions of the business as well. So talking to the sellers that it takes to get these deals under contract, talking to the title companies, sending out the mail, listing the properties on the market, all of it. We sub those tasks out once we've built systems and processes around doing the deals consistently and successfully. So that is what land flipping is. This has been the model that has made me my first $1 million in profit, my second $1 million in profit, and it continues to make me money month after month. So let's answer question 2. Let's see. So question number 2 is land flipping still profitable in 2025? Absolutely. Absolutely still profitable. Still profitable for me, and it's still profitable for all of my clients at LandVerse. I've had clients that have $35,000 profit months call me and say that's the most money they've ever made in their life. Had clients have $50,000 profit months, $100,000 profit months, $60,000 profit months, and many of these people say that it's absolutely life-changing, it's profitable, and they're able to live life on their terms, do things that they want to do, quit their jobs, retire their families, so on and so forth. It's funny, I literally just got a text message from another client that I hadn't heard from in a while, who's done a few deals with me, and just texted me, hey man, I'm in Europe, how's everything been, right? It's just crazy, right? And this guy is a guy that was working a job last year, and today is profitable and living life and doing what he wants to do. So it's absolutely profitable, and it allows me to live a life of freedom, man, literally ever since I was about 22 years old. Question 3, how do I find good land flipping deals? Finding a good land flipping deal is like digging for gold, right? It's like digging for gold, but it's also like, when you figure out how to do this properly, it's like digging for gold and you know where the gold is, if that makes sense. So when you first start doing this, it does kind of feel like it's the lottery. It does kind of feel like it can be, you know, the luck element to it. But then the more you do it, the more you practice, you realize that it's not luck at all. So once you realize that it's not luck at all, you realize that it's not luck anymore once you figure out that, once you're able to collect a certain amount of data, you realize that it's not luck anymore. And so I'm at the point in my business where I know how to go get a $50,000 profit deal, a $70,000 profit deal, a $100,000 profit deal. I know how to do all these things because I have the data, like years and years and years of data, so I know how to go back and get that. And so this is why you need to work with someone that is a professional and that has done this for years, because they have data that they can help you to skip the line. I mean, years and months and tens and if not hundreds of thousands of dollars spent. So that's how you find a good land flipping deal. And also, I mean, very important, beyond even that, beyond marketing, is really talking to sellers and mastering that skill. It really is a high level skill to talk to sellers and to talk to people in a way that allows you to build trust with them, build rapport with them, create a more personalized relationship with them, and get a deal done, bring them to the table. And then even beyond that, it's about selling a property on the market. Many people don't know how to sell properties on the market, which is why even now in 2025, I see a lot of people saying that their properties are not moving, they're slow, and then people end up quitting because they don't know how to sell property. right? If you're not taking the best of the best pictures, if you're not picking the best of the best properties, if you're not going with the best of the best brokers that have connections, if you're not with the best of the best title companies, it's going to be harder for you to move your properties. And this is why I put such a heavy focus on the relationships that I have in the land flipping industry with brokers, title companies, surveyors, everyone in the industry. I put such a heavy focus on just having deep rooted connections with people, because when you have those connections with people, the deals come a lot easier. Question number 4. What's the best way to finance a land flip? That's a great question. So what I did early on in my career was I used JV funding. And here's how to use JV funding. A lot of people do it the wrong way. What I did when I first started, I went with a JV funder who I knew had done a few deals and was already proven. You don't want to go with some JV funder who claims to be a JV funder but isn't a JV funder and then can't perform when it's time for you to, put up the money. And I've heard some horror stories, and I have people that run to me on the day of closing because their JV funder fell out and they're like, Femi, I know you can do it, and I've had to wire 200 grand on a deal that I know is good after I do my due diligence and I trust the operator that day. I've done this before. And so you have to know who you're working with when it comes to JV funders. But the best way to finance land flips is JV funders, and also just go with people that also are interested in the business. Not just like, I wouldn't go with some hands-off funder, especially if you're new, because if you're going with the hands-on funder that knows what they're doing, for example, like if you partner on a deal with me, I know exactly how to get this thing sold as fast as possible to make us all money, right? So I've done this many times where I partner with a JV partner, right? And they go, oh, well, I want to list it for this. I'm like, nah, we shouldn't list it for that. We need to list it like $30,000 less, because it'll sell a lot faster, and then we get an offer in the first day or so. And so go with someone that's been experienced, especially in a certain kind of deal, and has done those deals consistently, because then you have somebody on your team that's also an A player that's going to help you make money much faster, as opposed to just somebody who just throws up some money, gives you really bad terms. Now, I've also dealt with JV funders who just throw out these, oh my God, terrible terms. So read your JV contract. Some of these guys put terms in there that says like, oh, I need 50% back on my money before I even give you a cut of the deal. Some people do that. Some people put terms in there that's time stacked and say, oh, if it goes over 100 days, I need 80% of the deal. If it goes, all these ridiculous rules, right? And when you're working for this business, you have to make sure that you're maximizing your profit on each deal. Because if you don't maximize your profit on each deal, you're wasting energy. And if you waste energy, you're going to get burnt out. If you get burnt out, you're not going to do this anymore. If you're not going to do this anymore, then to you, land flipping is going to be a scam or something that doesn't work. And who wants that? We want to be as profitable as possible when it comes to this business. So you need to find the right partners, consistently partner with them, build good relationships with them. Like every JV funder I've ever actually had, I've been to dinner with them, I've been to lunch with them, I've hung out with them, I've hung out with their family. Like I end up making really good friends and good relationships with all JV funders, even to the point where when I was, when I was 22, 21, I would meet with these guys and I'll have conversations, and I would ask them, how they're building their portfolio. I would ask them what they're investing their money in. I would become the mentee to these people, to all the way to the point where now I'm 25 years old and able to fund other people's deals and able to mentee people that are even older than me, because I doubled down on getting around people that had the money. So you get around the people that have the money. You don't just make it a transactional relationship, you make it a personalized relationship, and you learn from people. So that's the best way to finance land flips, and it goes even deeper than just financing the land. You end up creating very good relationships with these people. Now, question number 5. How long does it take to flip land in 2025? Now, I've seen as little as 24 hours to be profitable on a deal. I've seen as long as 6 months to be profitable on a deal. Now, the 6 months that I did make $250,000 on that deal, but it really all depends. And so what we always do now to make sure that we're going 100 days or less on the market, we make sure that we're priced the most aggressive on the market. We make sure that our marketing is the best on the market as well. And we use the best brokers possible. right? I mean, A-player brokers, people that have done it time in, time out, day in, day out, and they're solid, right? That's what we do. And usually when we're doing that, it takes less than 100 days to sell our properties. What are the biggest risks in flipping land? Well, the biggest risks are you not getting educated correctly and really you losing all your money. If you don't get educated correctly, if you don't get in the right group, if you don't get the right knowledge from the right people, then you're gonna lose. And it's crazy, actually, this week in LandVerse, we enrolled several clients who had joined, other programs and other people and other groups, and they had spent tens of thousands of dollars with the wrong people. And I'm looking at the stuff that they did and the stuff that they were told to do, and I'm like I can't. It actually makes me like sad that they were told to do these things. And then when they did the things and then they're 20 grand in the hole, then it's like, oh, well, you just got to keep doing it. Just keep doing it. They're 30 grand in the hole, 40 grand in the hole. Oh, just keep doing it. There's no audit of the system. There's no accountability to address the constraints or the bottlenecks. There's no support. And so that's one of the biggest risks, is getting with people that don't really know what they're doing, right? And really losing your money. Besides that, I would say, this is the other thing that I look at it as well. A bigger risk is knowing that you can do something like this and make multiple 6 figures in profit, make 7 figures in profit, and then not do it. That's a much bigger risk than taking the risk of starting the business and starting it the right way and educating yourself properly. That's a much bigger risk. Like knowing that you can do something and deciding like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I'm just gonna keep working my job, or I'm gonna keep making my 5 grand a month. I'm gonna keep making my 10, 15 grand a month, but I'm kind of slaving away for it. Or I'm gonna keep doing this business that's not working, or whatever it is. If you see this as an opportunity for you, a really big risk is just not doing it and deciding that like, no, you're not gonna do it. That's a big risk, because this could change the trajectory of your financial future. It absolutely could, and it changed the trajectory of my financial future. That's why I know that. Now, question number 7 is, do I need a real estate license or permit to flip land? No, you don't. You don't need a real estate license or permit. And actually, I mean, we make so much more than the realtors, brokers on all these transactions, and it's a beautiful thing. I've made 70 grand on deals where I saw the realtor make 7 grand on. And so, no, you don't. And all you need to do is just be professional and have good business practices. And if you're doing that consistently, if you're not trying to scam anyone, if you're being an honest business person, you're going to consistently make money. If I've heard some just horror stories of people, faking things and just doing fraudulent stuff. And if you're not doing anything like that, which you really shouldn't be if you're watching this video, then you're going to make money in this business for a long time yet. Question number 8, how do I perform due diligence on vacant land? That is a very good question, and it really depends on the kind of property. It depends on where it is. It depends on a few things, but general rules. So let's say for a residential property, I want to make sure that this property can perk. I want to make sure that it's buildable. I want to make sure that it has access, physical and legal access. I want to make sure that it's not too sloped. I want to make sure there's no marshlands on it. I want to make sure there's no wetlands on it, no floodplain on it. And if there are wetlands and floodplain, okay, well, what's the general risk and how is that going to affect the valuation of the property? Let's say it is rural recreational hunting land. I'm doing surveys. I may do feasibility studies, but more so with residential land. You have to do a lot more research with residential land than you do recreational hunting land, because land like that, if people can hunt on it, if it's been actively hunted on in the past 3 years, then you can do something with the property. But residential land is really where you have to, make sure you have to do environmental studies. I've almost done deals where there were bodies buried on properties. I've seen that before, and we pulled environmental reports, and those saved us. And so these are all things that I do just to make sure that we're going to be profitable. Number 9, what are the tax implications of land flipping? Now, I would have you talk to your local CPA, local tax strategist about this, but when you flip land, you're actually constituted as a dealer. And so I implement some tax strategies myself and some smart investments myself, just to make sure that, you know, the label of me being a dealer is, I guess, really is just not there. But I'd have to have you talk to your CPA, your tax strategist about that. But since I've been 21 years old, I've made extremely smart investments. I've implemented the 1031 exchange a few times. I've done all those things, so that way, you know, these quick flips that I do consistently, I'm not getting like big implications. I will tell you, in some areas when it comes to tax, you do get withholding tax as well. You get these big withholding tax. I've gotten as much as 10%, and what that means is a withholding tax is essentially when a county withholds your profits, and they'll withhold like 10% of your profits on a deal, and it's annoying. It's frustrating. I still have areas and counties that owe me over $50,000 from the last few years, and just withholding tax alone that I've applied to get back. So really irritating, really annoying, but it's worth it when you're able to make, you know, consistent money on deals. Question number 10, how do I price land competitively? Now that is another good question. This is something that I put a heavy focus on as well. So what I always do is look at the market as a whole. I look to see acreage range, right? Okay, so 25 acres. If I see the average of these 25 acre parcels sold for $200,000, well then what I'm gonna do is position myself in the market to sell at $180,000. I'm always trying to be a little bit lower than what the market is saying properties are selling for, and then I'm always framing my property as a better quality property than the ones that were more expensive. So that way, when a buyer goes to look at my property, they feel like they're getting just a screaming deal. So every listing I try to list on the market, I make sure that my guys or my buyers are getting screaming deals. This is what you have to do, because when you create this, then you create more demand in the market, and it's great. You're consistently profitable. Question number 11 is, what are effective marketing strategies for selling land fast? So when we list properties on the MLS with local brokers, local land specific brokers, that's the best way I've seen to sell properties extremely fast. Make sure that we have really good listing descriptions, really good photos, really good drone shots, and make sure that we're working with a trusted local broker. And if you're doing all those things and you're priced aggressively, you're gonna sell extremely quick on the market. And again, pricing is so important. If you position yourself the wrong way, your property will sit for 6 months as opposed to 6 days. And I've seen this happen. I've seen someone, I've posted property up at the same time as someone else and just positioned myself better and sold so much faster than them. So maybe I put a listing up for $233,333. Someone else puts a listing up at the same time for $290,000. I sell in 2 weeks, they sell in 3 months. Why? Because I position myself better with pricing to attract attention, as an example. And this is just one of many examples that we implement into our business just to make sure that we're selling properties extremely quickly. And if you want to learn how to sell properties faster, if you want to learn how to build a land flipping business that's consistently profitable, feel free to book a strategy call below, and I will help you do that as quickly as possible before the end of 2025. Question number 12 is, what's the typical ROI on land flips? Now, I have seen a ridiculous amount of return on my ad spend, or ROAS as we like to call it. I've seen 15x, I've seen 20x, I've seen 5x, I've seen 200% on money, I've seen 100% on money, 50% on money. I mean, some ridiculous case studies, and I'll put some cards in here just on some example deals, just a few deals that I've done, just so you can kind of get a gist on what I'm talking about. But some of these deals, $96,000 in profit, $200,000 in profit, $250,000 in profit, $50,000 in profit, so on and so forth. So the ROI really is ridiculous, especially when you consider that all you really do is send mail or send text. These things can cost you anywhere from, I mean, max, right? We're talking about $25,000 into something that can make you $2.5 million. Something that can make you even forget 2.5, something that can make you $250,000. There's not too many things that you can put 25,000 in and get 250 out within the span of 8 months. If you go put $25,000 into a university degree, you are not going to get $250,000 out in 8 months. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what professor you talk to. You're not going to get it. If you go put $25,000 into the S&P 500, you're not going to get $250,000 out in 8 months. It's not going to happen. It has happened to me with this business 10 times over. So that's why I can tell you that this works. It works very well. The ROI is extremely high. Question number 13. Should I flip rural land or urban parcels? Now, I have personally done both and been profitable with both. So the answer to that question is both. It all depends on you buying right. This is the thing. You have to buy right when you're positioning yourself in these markets. You buy right, you sell right, you're profitable, no matter what the property is. I bought properties that were gonna be, 400 homes were gonna be built on, and I resold those. I've also bought property that is just beautiful prime hunting land. I bought property that was beautiful prime ranch land. I bought, several hundred acre estates. I bought all these things and sold them. So as long as you can buy right and you know you're buying right, do the deal. Question number 14, how much should I hold for land banking instead? So I wouldn't start land making until you have at least $500,000 in cash. And once you have $500,000 in cash and you have a profitable business, then you can start land banking. I personally land bank. I have a bunch of property that I hold in my portfolio. And if I have a deal that comes along and I buy it at 40, 50 cents on the market, and I'm like, this is actually a really nice property, I like it, I'll keep it. And maybe I'll flip it later. But there's a lot of property that I even get mailers on to this day that I keep and just hold and don't even have any plans for it, but I just want to hold it in my portfolio because I know this is a property that I bought way, way cheaper than what it's actually worth. So sometimes I keep these deals, but I wouldn't have done that until I was at the point in which I had at least $500,000 in cash that I can continue to run my business with and consistently and profitable on my business. And I would also say like $500,000 in cash is like the low end of what you should have if you're going to start land making and you're trying to make a business out of this. Question number 15, can I flip land remotely or virtually? Yes, you can. And I've done every single deal I've ever done remotely and virtually. I've never seen a single one of these deals in person. And we use things like Google Earth, Land ID, so on and so forth to do research on these deals, to audit these deals, to make sure that they're good deals. And we talk to sellers and we make sure that the people that we work with actually walk the properties as well. And I've never had a really bad bet on a deal to where I've actually lost money, and it's always worked out. I've done deals in Dubai, I've done deals in Italy, I've done deals in Paris, I've done deals in Turkey, I've done deals all over the world and been consistently profitable in all these countries. I've done deals in England, I've done deals literally everywhere. So absolutely you can do deals remotely, and really this is a lifestyle business to where you can do deals from anywhere, right? It doesn't matter where you live. You can live. I have clients that go travel, like I said earlier in the video, for weeks, and they still do deals while they're traveling. So you can do deals remotely and virtually, absolutely. Question number 16 is what permits or zoning are needed before flipping land? So that really depends on the deal. Most of the time, I don't actually have to get any permits, and in fact, thinking about it, I don't think I've ever had to get permits on anything. The most that we have to get is a perk test or a survey, but permits and specific zoning, I've never actually had to worry about that when it comes to being profitable in the standard land flipping business. Let me see. How do I get comps for land valuation? So the way you get comps to evaluate your parcel to make sure that so first of all, we have to identify what's the point of getting the land value. The point of getting the land value is so you can decipher a proper 50% of market value of what you're going to end up selling it for. And so the way we do that is by looking at sold comparables. So I look at sold comparables that sold fairly quickly, so 100 days or less. So if something took 100 days or less, then I look at that as a comp. If it took like 200 days, 300 days, 400 days, well then I know that that was priced way too high on the market, so I don't necessarily consider that a comp. So you look at sold comparables, you talk to local brokers in the area, you have local brokers actually look at the property, walk the property, give you what they think, and then usually I find myself at about 10% less of what the broker recommended. Question number 18 is, what's the difference between parcel flipping and lot flipping? So I assume that you are talking about wholesaling land, and this is something that a lot of people get confused on. What we do, is it wholesaling land, is it flipping land, what is it that we do? So we actually take title of these parcels and then resell them. Now depending on the strategy, I've done double closes as well, but 90% of the time we're taking title of these parcels and then actually reselling them on the market for profit. So I would say the difference is, when you're wholesaling land, you know, these are guys that, you know, they're wholesaling infill lots, and some of these guys are actually my friends, and I know them personally, that they take infill lots in a certain market, they buy them, and then, you know, or they don't even buy them, but they get them under contract, and then they assign it to a builder for like, you know, 5K, 10K, 8K, whatever it is. But, you know, I've yet to hear about any of these guys making $100,000 in profit on a deal. I haven't heard of any of these guys, and no shame to any of those guys. So you can make a lot of money doing that, but business is all about leverage. It's all about speed. It's all about maximizing your profit. It's all about maximizing your profitability. And so for me, I would much rather make $100,000 on a deal, on one deal, than make $10,000 on 20 deals. I'll much rather do that, or $10,000 on 10 deals. I'll much rather do that. And so that's the difference. You know, you have more control when you're actually flipping land and taking title, and you know, wherever you can make money. But the way I see it, it's all about leverage. It's all about speed. It's all about buying quality properties consistently and not depending on a builder or a buyer's list or a cash buyer's list or anything like that to make you profitable. See, I know how to sell my properties on the market, and I know how to sell them quickly. So I'll sell it to whoever is going to buy it, whoever the highest paying customer is. And so when you can do that, as opposed to, oh, well, let me find a buyer, some guy that's just gonna haggle with you and say, oh, you can't make 10K on that deal. You can't make 5K on that deal. No, that's too much. You're making too much money. I would much rather deal with listing something on the MLS and making a lot of money than something like that, to where basically I'm somebody's employee. Question number 19, how do I add value without building on the land? By buying right. When you buy your properties right, you're profitable from day one. When you buy your properties right, you're profitable from day one. If you just simply buy right, that's how you add value. Now, I've done things like clear roads on properties where there was shrubbery and brush, you know, up on the property. I've done that before. I've gotten perk tests, I've gotten surveys, but very seldom do I spend a lot of money to add value to my properties, besides just positioning myself to buy the property right and reselling it at 80 to 90% of the market value. So it really is very hands-off when you're doing it correctly. Question number 20, which financing types suit land flipping, hard money or owner finance? So I would say that JV funding is the best way to finance your deals. Absolutely. You can get hard money, but I wouldn't suggest hard money for people that are newer. You know, it can be very risky, and when you JV a deal, the risk is very little to none. And obviously, you know, if you're JVing with someone and you lose their money or you're not profitable on a deal, well, then that's going to affect your reputation. I'm happy to say that I've never done that. I've never lost anyone their money on a deal. And so, you know, you want to be very careful with that and make sure you're turning over every stone, making sure that you're profitable, so on and so forth. But, you know, for me personally, JV funding is the best way to get started. And as you grow, you know, I'm at the point now where I can go into banks. I have relationships with banks where I've gotten some fairly large credit lines to where I can fund any deal. I can fund $1 million deal, no problem. So, you know, once you start to build up your capital, your reputation, you build up, you know, a certain amount of HUDs, a certain amount of just a reputation. That's what you should aim to do. Build up your reputation, build up a portfolio, build up a track record, And then once you build up that track record, once you've kind of cut your teeth in the game, then you can go to these banks and say, hey, look, this is what my balance sheet looks like. This is what my balance sheet looks like. I need a credit line for this. I need some money for this. And the bank will be happy to give you money at a very, 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 very low interest rate, especially if you keep your credit right. So this also has to do with just, getting into this business and not just using this as like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna have fun or whatever. Like, no, use this thing as a vehicle to get your money just right. Use it as a vehicle to get your credit right, to get your finances right, to get everything in order. And that's what I've done, because once you make a certain amount of money with this, then you realize that the game also, it becomes, you're able to 10x the game just by having leverage. So I can do so many more deals just because of the leverage that I have. And I can do that without using my own money, with using the bank's money, and using the bank's money at 4 or 5%, right? And so this is about, the long game too. And so I feel like people kind of look at this business sometimes and they're like, oh man, it's only one deal, it's only 2 deals. But if you just, like I said, build up a reputation, build up a track record, learn how to do deals properly, and see the road. You got to be able to see the road. This is one thing about me. I was able to see the road even when tough days, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, all these crazy things that I used to do and still do sometimes to this day. I would see all that and be like, okay, I know where I'm going to be at 25. I know where I'm going to be at 25. I know what I'm going to be able to do. And so that's the point that you have to get to when it comes to financing, to where you're able to finance your own deals, no problem. Question number 21, what tools can help with land flipping market analysis? Man, there are so many great tools that you can use for land flipping market analysis. The first thing I'm going to say before I even get into like all the tools that you could use is you need to become really good at using things like Zillow, become really good at using things like Redfin, become really good at just understanding the movement of a market without using anything else. Because if you can master that basic skill, then once you add something like a Land Insights, something like, a Land Portal, a Land Stats, Priced, any of these kind of companies, once you master those things, then you master the basics. Then when it comes to using something like Land Insights, the way you do your market research is going to be so much more streamlined, right? When it comes to using, downloading data on a Land Stats or whatever, the way that you do your market research is going to be so much easier because you master the basics of just understanding a sold to for sale ratio, understanding how many properties have sold versus how many are for sale, understanding the types of properties that have sold and why those properties have sold, understanding how to actually just talk to the brokers in that area to decipher what's good in the market, what's not good in the market, what you need to aim for, what you need to not aim for, understand what kind of sellers are going to be in that area. Once you master that, once you add all the tools on top of it, it becomes very easy. I feel like the problem with people is they don't master the basics first. It's like you got to have training wheels on before you can ride the bike, right? You got to learn how to throw the jab before you learn how to throw another punch. So you have to learn how to do basic things before you get up into other levels and start spending all the tens of thousands of dollars on other stuff. And I feel like people come into this, they get excited, they spend tens of thousands of dollars on all these things, and then they're like, oh well dude, I have like 25 different tools and I don't know which one to use. This is why I say to master the basics, because before all these companies came along, there was the basic skill of evaluating a market, evaluating properties that sold in a market, evaluating their pricing, evaluating how you need to position yourself to sell quickly as well. And that skill still rings true today, regardless of all the tools that are out there. So master the basics first and then get to the tools after. Question number 22, how do I find buyers or investors for raw land? We find all of our buyers on the MLS. Now, when it comes to investors, I've dealt with, I've had so many investors in my deals at this point, from guys that were doing traditional real estate, saw what I was doing and wanted to invest in a deal, to just normal JV funders, to friends and family, to all of it. And so a really good way to just get more investors is to build up a track record, start to build up trust, and then you can get investors from that way. But as far as finding buyers, just list on the market, list on the MLS, and sell quickly. Question number 23, what mistakes do new land flippers make? Man, there's so many mistakes, and I'm actually going to do a completely separate video about this, but new land flippers, they'll listen to 50 different people about the same topic, and then they'll have paralysis over analysis. They won't take any action. They will get 25 different tools and think that the tools are going to be the answer to solve the problem of them getting their first deal. They don't have any implementation. Even if they do implement, they don't know how to go back and look at their past data and evaluate any constraints and bottlenecks in their business to where they can actually improve the business. They don't do that. It's just, oh shit, I sent out 10,000 mailers and nothing happened. That's all it is. Oh, I sent out 10,000 mailers and everyone said they wanted market price. I sent out 10,000 mailers and everyone said that, oh, you know, all the properties were trash. They don't actually go back and look at what they did. If you didn't get a deal back on that mailer, if you didn't get a deal back on that text campaign and you've been doing it consistently, it's your fault, and you have to know what your constraints are. And see, most people, most groups, most coaches, all that, they don't even know how to evaluate constraints themselves because they haven't been through any hard bottlenecks. Because maybe sometimes they're not doing deals anymore. Maybe they did 2 or 3 deals. And so you have to know who you're also dealing with. When you're dealing with a guy that's not done very many deals and is not seasoned in the game and hasn't been kicked in his teeth a couple times, well then when it's time to evaluate constraints and bottlenecks, you know what you're gonna hear? The answer you're gonna hear is, just keep sending mail. You're not going to hear anything about, okay, well, let's evaluate why that happened. Let's look at it deeply. Let me look at all your conversations. Let me listen to everything that came into your business. Let me listen to everyone that called in. Let me figure out what the fuck is going on so that we can fix this for you. And so there are a few mistakes that new land flippers make, and that's one of them. And I would say the other thing too is, by the same token, this thing does take time. This thing does not happen overnight. And so if you think this is gonna happen overnight, if you think that I'm just gonna send out mail and then 30 days later, I'm gonna make $200,000, I'm gonna even make $15,000, you're highly mistaken. People are so worried about the quickness of it. Oh, how fast am I gonna get my investment? I need to make money now. When you go to college, do you pay your tuition or take out your loan to pay your tuition and expect to make money in the first 3 months? No, you don't. So why is it that you come into a business model where you can make a lot more money than you can with a degree in college? Why is it that you come into the business model expecting to get rich quick? And that's an epidemic. People that come into this and expect to get rich quick. If you're expecting to get rich quick doing this, you have another thing coming for you because you're not gonna get rich quickly. I didn't get rich quickly. Now in hindsight, does it feel like it? Absolutely. Because I put in the work, of course. It didn't take me that long in hindsight. But if you sit here and think that like, oh yeah, man, like, you know, man, it's been 30 days and I haven't got a deal. Oh my God. You're crying about that. Why? Why are we crying about not getting a deal after 30 days? This is like, you should enjoy that. You should enjoy the process of sending out the mail, figuring it out, getting up early, getting on the phone, having the uncomfortable conversations, being cursed out. You got to enjoy that if you're going to do this. You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy like, damn, man, picking a market is boring. I don't want to sit here and talk to 50 people. I don't want to sit here and talk to 100 people. But guess what? When you're able to book that first class flight to Paris, when you're able to book that first class flight to wherever you want to go, you fly in first class everywhere. When you're able to buy whatever kind of car you want, live in a neighborhood surrounded by 10 homes that are worth tens of millions of dollars, live in a multi-million-dollar home yourself, when you're able to take your family all over the world, when you're able to make smart investments and build your portfolio early on in your life, it becomes so worth it, even later on in your life. Forget early on, even if you're 65 years old, you gotta do the boring stuff, make your $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in profit plus, and live whatever kind of life you wanna live. when you're able to decide what you want to do with your days, the boring stuff is worth it. I can tell you that being called the N-word, being cursed out, sending mail, nothing coming back, having to figure it out, I can tell you that making investments with the wrong people, I can tell you that every single one of those things was worth it 10x over, and I would do it again to get to where I am now, because now I'm in a place where I can do whatever it is that I want to do. So when it comes to new land flippers, don't forget that. Don't forget why you want to do this in the first place. Remember your why. When you remember why you want to do it, it becomes extremely easy to stay focused on the process of making it happen. Question number 24. How do market cycles affect land values? This is a great question. I've been through many market dips, many times where people were scared. Presidency changes, tariffs. I've been through all of this. And one thing I will say is, when the market dips, when there's fear in the market, we just price lower and we buy lower. And we implement fear with the people that we buy from so that they sell to us even more. So are there some psychology tactics that we use with sellers to make sure we get properties maybe at 30% as opposed to that 40%? Absolutely. And is it business? Absolutely. And do we still add value to their situation to make sure they have the cash for whatever they're afraid of? Absolutely. So at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. And if you have to be smart with how you're talking to a person so that you can negotiate and get them down to 30%, you have to do that. You have to do that. And in a way that you're still adding value to their situation and know that, you know, that's what they want to do and you guys mutually agree, then you have to do it. Question number 25, is land flipping unethical? Now, this is a really good question. Is land flipping unethical or potentially fraudulent? The answer to that question is no. It's not fraudulent and it's not unethical, and I will tell you exactly why. So, first of all, when it comes to it being unethical, we solve problems for people, right? People call us, people reach out to us, and they indicate that they want to sell because they have a very specific problem that they need solved, whether it be their back taxes, whether it be a 1031 exchange, whether it be somebody just died, whether it be they got a divorce, whatever it is, they have a problem that they need to be solved, right? And so if they have a problem that they need to be solved, we're able to position ourselves in a manner in which we're able to solve that problem for them with quick cash. Most of the sellers that we end up buying property from, they have situations in where they don't necessarily want to list the property, or, you know, the other thing too is a lot of brokers and realtors, if you don't know who you're working with, and most of the time, it's funny, these sellers end up working with people that don't know what they're doing. And so if you don't know who you're working with, then it's going to take you a lot longer to sell your property on the market. And so many times I've seen people that even listed their properties on the market and they didn't sell, and they sold to us because they didn't know how to actually sell land. Selling land is not an easy thing to do. It's not. Everything that I just explained, like, that's after years and years and years of experience of learning how to sell land, learning how to sell it very quickly. And so it's not an easy thing to do. So no, when it comes to being unethical, absolutely not. I've had sellers call us back after we've done business with them and just thanked us for helping them, thanked us for buying their property. They didn't know what they would do if we didn't buy it. They didn't know, you know, hey, I wasn't going to be able to pay my mortgage if you didn't provide me with that cash. I wouldn't have been able to do it. And so this is really arbitrage at the highest level, and I always use the Pokemon card analogy of, if you go to a garage sale and you see somebody's Pokemon card and you know that Pokemon card is worth $1 million, and maybe even they know it's worth $1 million, but you know what they say? I'll give it to you for $400, because they just want the Pokemon card gone. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to look at it anymore. Maybe there was their husband's Pokemon card and they don't like their husband anymore, and so they sell it to you instead for $400. These are situations that we have dealt with. And so when it comes to unethical, absolutely not. And the second question was, the second thing is it potentially fraudulent? No, there's absolutely nothing fraudulent about land flipping. Land flipping is completely legitimate. You have to make sure that you're doing it correctly. Like I said, there are people that that are the people that come into this business that I've seen that are dirty, slimy, snaky people. And you have to watch out for those people, because there are people that will fake identities to sell a property, to buy a property. There are people that will try to scam sellers, and I hate these kinds of people. There are people that try to scam, like, why are you trying to scam? Why are you trying to implement these dirty, fraudulent tactics when you could just do clean business and help somebody? This I don't understand. I do not understand why a person would choose to do something fraudulent, do something dirty, do something unethical, do something honest, dishonest. It really, really, really pisses me off. And so, to these people, if you're watching this video and you're a scammer, you're fraudulent, fuck you, honestly. And so, just don't do that. Don't do it. I got a little mad there because I've seen it. And in fact, this has happened to me before. That's why I'm a little bit triggered, because I almost bought a property a few months back. The first time this ever happened, where I was about to buy it. Day of closing, I get a call from the sheriff saying that the seller faked their ID and it's some random person, and he's tried to do this before. So what this guy was trying to do was get my $200,000. He's trying to get my money and just take it for himself. Luckily, they found out, but you have to be extremely careful with some of these guys. You just have to be extremely careful, because you know, you don't know who you're dealing with. So just make sure that when you start doing this business, you do everything the right way. You do clean business. You're an honest business person. You follow up on what you say you're gonna do. You implement good tactics. You're not trying to scam someone. You're not trying to beat anybody over. You're not trying to lie. You're not trying to be dishonest. You're not trying to steal. You're not trying to cheat. Because at the end of the day, I truly believe that if you do any of these things in business, at some point, that shit is gonna catch up to you. And when it catches up to you, you are cooked, you are finished. Because all you have in business is your reputation. All you have in business is your word. And if you break those things, I personally don't want to do business with anybody like that. And so take your reputation extremely seriously. Take the things you do extremely seriously. And look, the money is going to come. We don't have to do anything illegal. We don't have to beat anybody over. We don't have to scam anybody. We don't have to be fraudulent. We can be honest. We can do good business. We can be good people. We can take care of our families the right way. We don't have to do anything illegal. And that's something that I'm not an advocate for at all. You have to do the right thing. Do the right thing always, even when it's not the easiest thing to do. Even when the right thing is not the easiest thing, still do the right thing, because at the end of the day, it will catch up with you at some point. And so for me, I always make sure I do the right thing. And there have been times where, you know, I'm like, okay, well, we could do it like this. I'm like, no. Because even though it's not that bad, I don't care. If it's not that bad, it doesn't matter to me. It has to be, you have to do good business and have that on your conscience. Like, I always do good business and I always help people. And that's one thing I can say. I have a clean conscience, and everybody cannot say that. I have a clean conscience. I've never ran away from a deal. I've always saw everything through and made sure that I took care of my people. I always made sure I took care of my investors. I always made sure everybody got paid. I always made sure all that. I always make sure I was the last one paid, take care of my team. I do all that. So if you want to be the king, if you want to be the queen, if you want to build an empire, you got to make sure that you do everything right, start to finish. You have to be on point. You got to be perfect. And when you do that, you're able to build a land flipping empire. And if you want to learn how to build a land flipping empire in the next 6 to 18 months with me, feel free to book a call below. Let's talk it out. Let's figure out where you are, where you want to be. If you're like, Femi, I made 100 grand last year. I want to make 300 grand. Femi, I made 300 grand last year. I want to double my income. Femi, I'm ready to scale my land flipping business from 600K to 1.5 million, so on and so forth. I can absolutely help you do that. Book a strategy call below, and let's get to work. I'll see you guys on the next video.